Welcome to our Together on Mission podcast, brought to you by the Baptist Union of Victoria and hosted by our Director of Mission and Ministries, Rev Daniel Bullock. Daniel will be joined by a guest from our Victorian Baptist family each week for a brief discussion that aims to encourage you in your personal walk of faith and give you some practical suggestions that you can implement through your week. Throughout this year, the podcast will be focusing on the theme of being and sharing the good news. For this episode of the podcast, we're thrilled to welcome Rev Dr Elijah Brown, CEO and General Secretary of the Baptist World Alliance, our global Baptist movement. As General Secretary and CEO, Elijah has the overall responsibility for the BWA and is its chief representative within the Baptist family to governments, global organisations and institutions, and other Christian and faith traditions. Now let's welcome Daniel and Elijah.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to our podcast. As was mentioned in the introduction, today my special guest is Rev Dr Elijah Brown, who is the General Secretary and CEO of the Baptist World Alliance, or the BWA as it is known. Founded in 1905, the BWA is a Christian world communion that draws upon 400 years of shared Baptist history, with 253 member bodies in 130 countries and territories, representing over 51 million baptised believers and 176,000 churches. Elijah, it's a pleasure to have you on this podcast. And as we kick off, I was wondering if you could share a little about yourself, your family, and your role.
Well, Daniel, it's such a joy to be with you and to be here in BUV. I grew up in a rural part of Texas, a thriving metropolis of 900 people. Growing up, my address was P.O. Box B. It's all you needed to get everybody in our community. But what a joy it is to be from that location. Together, my wife, Amy, and I have now been married 22 years, and we have 3 children, Hudson, who's 11, Sahara, who is 9, and Keziah, who is 7. It's a joy to serve as the General Secretary and CEO of the Baptist World Alliance and to do all that we can to live out a passion for sharing the gospel, a passion for standing with the persecuted, and a passion for supporting local churches which are on the front line of God's ministry in reaching our world today.
Fantastic, Elijah. Well, looking forward to coming back and hearing a few more of your thoughts in just a moment. The Baptist World Alliance has 5 ministry areas that it focuses on. Number 1, strengthening, referring to worship, fellowship, and unity. Number 2, leading through mission and evangelism. Number 3, responding, which is a focus on aid, relief, and community development. And 4, defending, which is work centered on religious freedom, human rights, and justice. And the 5th and final one is advancing, where the emphasis is on theological reflection and transformational leadership. Over the next 5 weeks, I'm going to talk to Elijah about each of these focus areas and how we can engage in our lives and through our churches and ministries. Today's focus will be on strengthening our unity through worship and fellowship. The Bible is clear on the importance of corporate worship to unify and strengthen the body of believers. In Psalm 95, verse 6 and 7, we read, "Come, let us bow down and worship. Let us kneel before the Lord our Maker, for he is our God, and we are the people of his pasture, the flock under his care." In Colossians 3:16, it says, "Let the message of Christ dwell among you richly as you teach and admonish one another, singing to God with gratitude in your hearts." And Ephesians 5:19, "Speak to one another with psalms, hymns, and songs from the Spirit. Sing and make music from your heart to the Lord." Hebrews 10:24-25, "And let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together, as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another all the more as you see the day approaching." These scriptures remind us that worship isn't just something we do on our own, it's something we're called to do together as God's people. And when we worship together, our differences not only dissolve, but are unified to strengthen the body as a whole. Within our congregations, we won't always agree. We all have individual preferences, convictions, and experiences that shape us and our perspective on life and ministry. But at the very center of membership in God's family, there is to be a unity regarding core issues of our faith. Issues like the authority of the Bible, the centrality and preeminence of Jesus, the necessity of evangelism, the priority of prayer and worship in our daily lives, and justice and compassion for the least and the poor. These shared convictions allow God's people to gather in unity, to glorify God and to build one another up so that we can live lives of faith, passion, and compassion in our world. Elijah, on the BWA website, you have attached a statement under each focus area. Under strengthen, you've written, centered in Jesus Christ and rooted in deep spiritual life, we strengthen our worldwide family through ongoing gatherings, pastoral presence, mutual friendship, and the cultivation of worship, fellowship, and unity. Could you describe for us the practical ways this works out in and through the ministry of the Baptist World Alliance?
Well, Daniel, we believe that the foundation for unity is prayer, which is why every week we publish a One in Prayer email that will help everyone pray through all the countries around the world with the insight from the Baptists in those countries over the course of a year. I remember I was once in Nigeria, and we had interacted with a woman who had a really horrific and challenging testimony about how she had been captured by Boko Haram. She thought she was going to escape when she met one of her classmates on the road, and rather than leading her to freedom as he had promised, he led her to Boko Haram and turned her over for an award. As she described what it was like to be held captive, and then how she eventually escaped one night by placing her 2 children on her back and on her shoulders and climbing over a fence. After she shared all of these really challenging stories, I said, "Thank you so much for sharing. Is there just one message that you would want me to share on behalf of your testimony with our broader Baptist family?" And Daniel, without hesitation, she said, "Would you tell the people in the West that I am praying for them, and that I pray they will never know the kind of horrific experiences that we've had here?" Now, if people who've been held captive by Boko Haram are praying for us, would we join together with them, one in prayer? We don't all have the opportunity to travel to Nigeria or to Argentina or even here to Australia. But as one worldwide family with 51 million Baptists and 130 countries, we can be one in prayer. So I want to invite all of us, go to the website, baptistworld.org/prayer, and let's let prayer be the foundation of our unity.
Okay, that's fantastic. Now, we have the Baptist World Alliance Congress being hosted here in Australia next July in Brisbane. Could you explain to our listeners how the Congress works as a unifying gathering for the global Baptist family?
Since 1905, the Baptist World Alliance has gathered every 5 years in world congresses. They have been incredible experiences all around the world, and the next one is going to be in July 2025 in Brisbane. We expect thousands and thousands of Baptists from 100 countries to gather together in Brisbane in July, which if you're here in Melbourne is already a great reason why you ought to head up. But it's an incredible experience. On the Monday and Tuesday, we have 2 pre-summits, one focused on women, one focused on emerging leaders under the age of 35. And then Wednesday through Saturday is the Congress. It begins Wednesday night with something like the Parade of the Nations. It feels like the Olympics to see all of these Baptists come in from around the world. It's just an incredible experience when you can look around and see the entirety of your family. And then we end on Saturday night with a worldwide communion. Communion is always an element of unity where we lay down our perspectives and our rights in order to embrace Jesus' one kingdom that brings us together as brothers and sisters. And to do that as a worldwide family is a truly incredible experience. Daniel, I'm so passionate about these congresses because they had such a transformative difference in my life. When my wife Amy and I were in our 20s, we were able to go to that Congress, and it had seemed like it was going to be out of our reach. We were students. There was more month than there was money, so we weren't sure how it was going to work out, but my mother agreed to purchase our ticket, and my mother-in-law agreed to purchase our registration, and when we went, it changed our lives. And it'll change your life. When you can be together in a room and you can see people from Ukraine and from Russia and from Israel and from Palestine, when you can see people from Africa where the church is growing, where you can see people from Latin America and across Asia and from the Pacific, and all of us together as one family in Jesus Christ.
Well, it sounds very exciting. Sounds very attractive. Of course, going to Brisbane in July for Victorians is a real positive, and of course, gathering together with the global family is a positive. But as Victorians, is there any other reason that would be good for us to attend the Congress?
It is a powerful opportunity to help remobilize your church. Your church will never talk about missions again once they've gone to a World Congress. And, because we do these only every 5 years and because they rotate around the regions of the world, it will not be back in the Asia-Pacific region again until 2050. Yeah. I don't want us to miss the opportunity when you're so close here in Melbourne. I know Melbourne is far from Queensland, but listen, friends, I'll be bringing our children and our family from Washington, D.C. People will be coming from Brazil and from Norway and Nigeria and Japan. And so this is just an incredible opportunity not to wait until 2050, but to gather in 2025 to experience what it is like to truly be one global family and to re-energize your church and your ministry and to go home ready to reach your neighborhood.
Fantastic. So really for Victorian Baptists, it's once in a lifetime opportunity, unless they want to wait to 2050 and maybe travel to Indonesia or wherever it may be in that time. Okay. Well, thanks very much, Elijah. To our listeners, my hope and prayer is that you would know the blessings and the strengthening that comes from being connected with a local church community. But I also pray that you would be strengthened by the truth that we belong to an amazing global family of Baptist Christians throughout the world that share our faith and hope and desire to make Jesus known in the world. And my prayer is that you would come to this understanding and that you would celebrate this fact and you would be moved and reshaped by this truth and encouraged in your faith. So until next time, may you truly experience the blessing of God.